So just to get an idea of who is on this webinar, I want to make sure whatever information that I present is relevant. So I'm going to ask you guys to answer one poll. I'm just going to ask you if you're a high school student or community college student. So if you guys could do that, that would be great. So it says, I am currently a student in either high school, community college, or four-year. All right. I think everyone has voted. Thank you guys. Looks like everybody on this webinar is in high school. So I'll just make sure that all the information that I present to you guys are relevant to high school students. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. All right, so the UC personal insight questions. So you guys know there are 8 questions that you guys can choose from. You only need to answer 4. You know, it really doesn't matter which ones you guys pick. Some students say, I think, you know, admissions readers will want me to pick the one about my favorite academic subject or my leadership. It really doesn't matter. They don't really have a preference. It's not like you get more points or bump in your application by choosing one or the other. They just want you to pick questions that are personally relevant to you. So when you look at those 8 questions, read them, make sure you understand them, and pick the ones that you feel will highlight parts of you that are not highlighted in other parts of your application. We'll go over that a little bit later in our webinar. Each question or response has to be 350 words or less. All right, so that's 350 words for each of the 4 essays that you guys, or short responses that you guys have to write. So these are some of the common mistakes that we notice. So I used to read for one of the UCs, and sometimes I would catch students talking to a specific UC. So they say, "Dear UC Santa Cruz, blah, 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 blah." That's something you want to avoid. Just don't even mention any UC campuses. I would avoid using any kind of inappropriate humor. If you're not sure, you know, whether or not your jokes are appropriate or funny, or if you should include them. If you're not sure, I would just avoid them. Avoid creative writing such as poem and cliche. They like it pretty straight to the point and very concise. So when you use if you use very long sentences that are very flowery and descriptive, and then they're not really sure what you're trying to say, that's not helpful for them because that doesn't tell them anything about you. They don't spend a lot of time reading the application and essay, so you want to make it very easy for them. Leave out quotations. They want to know your thoughts and words, not someone else. So a lot of times people start off their essays with a quote from their favorite author, and then they apply it to their lives. Like, just cut the quote and just get straight to your story. So stick to the facts and personal examples. I think that's pretty straightforward. Another common mistake is students tend to repeat what they put in other parts of their application. So they give us like a laundry list of all the clubs that they were in or all the volunteer work that they've done without giving us any additional information. It's okay to pick, let's say you're part of a sports or club for many, many years and you want to elaborate on that, or you want to use that as an example of leadership. You can definitely do that. It's not like you should avoid repeating anything. Just make sure to elaborate or give us a story or example that tells us more than you just, you know, being on the football or basketball team, right? You don't want to ask philosophical questions. Like I said, just get to the point and tell them what you mean. Acronyms, you want to spell them out for the readers. So this includes, like, a very popular club would be CSF. They have no idea what CSF stands for. There are actually multiple CSFs, and they all stand for different things. So if you're in, you know, the California Scholarship Federation, CSF, you want to make sure you spell out California Scholarship Federation and then put it in, you know, parentheses, but make sure you at least spell it out at least once so they know what you're talking about. So why are these questions important? They're basically an interview on paper. You know, they're getting to know you as a person, not in terms of just your numbers and your classes and your GPAs and your test scores. It adds a little bit more depth to your who you are. So where do you guys start? A lot of the seniors are really stressed out, but thankfully on the SRA Hub, we have a brainstorming worksheet. I will show you how to find it. So if you guys go onto the SRA Hub, you'll see this. You'll click on resources here at the top. Then you could type in brainstorming sheet. And we actually have more than one. So we have one for the Common App, the CSU EOP, as well as the UCs. So maybe we'll say UC. There it is. Click there. And here it is. So it's broken down by different questions. So you'll see there will be 8 questions. All right. And then basically we break down each question to make sure you answer the prompt. And then we have these guiding questions up here to help you answer this bigger question here. So this is a very popular question. Describe the most significant challenge you faced and the steps you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? So there's a lot of different questions in that one question. So we help you out. We first ask you, what's the biggest thing you've overcome in your life? And you want to be specific. Give us an example. How did it affect you academically? What steps did you take to overcome it? And on and on. So you can use this brainstorming sheet if you haven't started at all. Or if you guys already have drafts, you guys can basically copy and paste pieces of your personal statement and put them into the brainstorming worksheet to make sure that you hit all these different questions and points. Because if you notice that, hey, my draft only answers this, and this question is missing this part, you know you have to come up with something for this and include it in your essay. Any questions about that? No? Okay. So, like I said, you want to outline each of your essays so you stay on track and answer each part of the prompt. So if you use our brainstorming worksheet, we'll help you do that. You want to plan to tell your readers exactly what you mean and lay everything out clearly for them. So in every single paragraph, you should state what you're trying to prove or show them. You want to use specific facts. So don't say something like, oh, I made a difference in my community because I did a lot of volunteering. Like, that's not very specific, right? Something more specific would be, I joined the Interact Club and we go out into the community and such as the food bank and help this many days, this many week and then year. Anything specific, just specific roles when you're volunteering. The more specific, the better. And you want to make sure you tie back around what the paragraph is showing so that it's complete. All right, pretty straightforward. So these are things you should write about. I would take notes if I were you. If you talk about the past, you want to be brief. So basically the main thing is you want to focus on events or achievements that happen in high school. If you're writing about, let's say, a hardship that you overcame that maybe started in middle school or elementary school, or maybe you're an immigrant and you came in 2nd grade and English was really hard for you. It's okay to mention that, just make sure it's not the main focus, because they're trying to determine who you are now or how you've grown since you were 6 or 7 or in middle school. They're not trying to let 6-year-old you into college. They want to let high school you into college. So it's okay to mention the past, just make sure it's focused on high school. Each response should be approximately 50% what happened and 50% of so what? What was the point of what I said? So some students spend maybe 75% of their essay talking about what happened. So maybe the obstacle or hardship that they have, and then just 25% on, you know, this is why it mattered. This is what I learned. This is how it shaped who I am. You want it to be 50-50, okay? 50% of what happened and 50% of so what. You want to show resilience and stay positive. So if you're talking about a hardship, don't just focus on how hard everything was. You want to show them what you did to overcome the obstacle, where you are now, how it shaped you to be the person you are today. So it's okay to mention things that are negative. Just make sure to show resilience and positivity. The committee wants to know mainly about you, not other people, no matter how much they influence you. So I'll tell a personal story for this one. When I was a senior and I was writing my personal statements for the UC, I wrote basically about my dad, and I thought it was relevant. I had my AP English teachers check it and everything. She said, this essay is perfect, it's good to go. But when I went to my college advisor and showed her my essay, she paused, and I was like, uh-oh, that's not a good sign. And she told me, Michelle, this is really well written, and I learned a lot about your dad, but not a lot about you. And no joke, I just started crying because I worked so hard, and my English teacher said it was good to go. But looking back, after I revised my essay, you know, I understood what my counselor was saying, and it's really, really important that it's about you. It's okay to say, you know, to mention your parents or your grandparents or your coach, whoever, but you have to be the main character of your story. So in the end, in my essay, I mentioned my dad, but I mentioned the situation of what was happening and how that affected me and what I did to overcome the challenge that brought. So it's, you know, it happens to a lot of students, so just don't take it personally when someone says, hey, you need to talk more about yourself, because yes, you should be the star of your essay. So find your voice. There should be a lot of I statements. You want to keep it personal yet professional. So don't use any slang. I know we're all from the Bay, but don't say words like ain't or hella. Don't use special characters. And just write. Don't feel like you have to sound a certain way. Don't feel like you have to use these fancy vocabulary words. In fact, they prefer that you don't. Just write in your own voice. That's what they really want. So there are a lot of tips and resources. So you guys can see here, we have a lot of resources on the Hub, not only the brainstorming worksheets, but just tips on how to write essays and how to tackle the UC personal statements. There's the college essay guide. So that actually has that website has a lot of good info on how to write essays. And you could also go to the UC website themselves. They also have a page where they break down each question with smaller questions, similar to the brainstorming worksheet that we have, to help you get your juices flowing so you know what to write about and that you write the most complete essay. So I'm going to take a pause and check if we have any questions. So I'll let you guys think of any questions you guys might have. If you have any questions, just type them in. While people are thinking of questions to ask, I am going to launch our post survey. So if you don't have a question, just go ahead and answer our post survey. And then once everyone takes the post survey, we'll end the webinar if there are no questions. If you do have any questions that you think of later on, feel free to just email us on the Hub or post it on one of our feeds, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. I know senior year is really stressful, especially with all the apps, but just hang in there. You're almost there. Just waiting on one more person. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If not, we'll see you on the hub. Bye. Oh, wait, I just saw a question. I want to make sure I answer it. So when writing about negative experiences, what is the limit? Can you elaborate more on your question? If you're talking about the number of negative things you can write about, there's not really necessarily a limit, as long as you focus on the positive and show resiliency. Oh, how bad can the experience be? There's not really anything that you can't say, but just remember it's similar to an interview where you want to be careful of, you want to be honest and open, but you also want to be mindful that these are admissions readers who are trying to decide whether or not to let you into the university. So if you have any questions on, I want to write about this, but I'm not sure if it's like too negative or too bad, or if I've gone too far, you can email me and then I will answer it for you. You can also ask your counselor at school. Okay. All right. I think that's all the questions we had. I will see you next time on our next webinar. Bye.